Hello, I'm James and I play the guitar.
I'm Will and I play guitar and sing.
I'm Andrew and I'm the drummer. And this is Nauto-san, bass player.
And we are Brigade. Here for your pleasure. We got together in 2003. I moved to London after being in Bristol and tried to get a band together, and it wasn't happening at first, but then I met a couple of Japanese guys. One of them was a drummer and the other guy was a bassist, and the bassist is in the band still today. And, yeah, it all started with us just jamming and looking for gigs, and we played our first gig on the 29th of September 2003 at the Bull and Gate, and we were pretty good. We were pretty ropey as well. And then I sort of said to James, he was in another band called The Gears, and I said, can you help me out? We got all these shows booked. We need to be a four-piece, and we sort of mulled it over, and then...
Yeah, and so we became a four-piece and started doing gigs outside London, and lots of gigs in London.
Basically trying to build it and trying to get signed. One moment that I think Naoto sort of pricked his ears up at when I was first trying to get him involved with the band, when it was literally just me. And I'd been sitting in 2003, I was living with my brother at the time, and I sat on the sofa and started strumming these chords, and a little pop ditty came together, and it's a song called Stunning. And that song sort of I think got Naoto's attention. It certainly got the drummer's attention, and I think even maybe James, when you first heard it, thought that's got potential for it to be a big hit. And that's the one that got the management interested as well. So that first song, which didn't get released till 2008 in the end, was a song that was one of our first songs was written together, and it was the song that got everyone's interest in the band sort of cemented.
Don't stop looking away, 'cause I know what you want to say, but there's no place that I'd rather be when I'm alone and something else. Stop looking away, 'cause I know what you want to say. There's no place that I'd rather be when I'm alone in the conversation. The world, the world. What we do right. We're the world, the world.
We started to notice a real interest when Stunning, when we first started to demo Stunning and actually put Stunning around like a few people, it started to turn some heads, didn't it?
We were sort of like the band to go and check out at that point, and it didn't quite work out, but I think it was a bit further down the line when we finally started putting our first single out, our Made to Wreck EP on Mighty Atom, that we couldn't believe how well the press went. Like, the press campaign started, we didn't really know what was going on, we were very naive, we sort of knew like this guy had been employed to try and get us in magazines, and suddenly the magazines were writing about us, and we were like, well, it's got to be, something's got to be going well here, and then when we suddenly found out we got spot played on Radio 1, we were like,
yeah, incredible.
It's great.
Absolutely incredible. So the balls really started to roll.
What does it feel like? What does it feel like? We lift the world, we lift the world. Clean on the inside, clean on the inside. What we do, feel right. What does it feel like? What does it feel like? We lift the world, we lift the world. Clean on the inside, yeah.
when I was was in Bristol before I moved to London, I was heavily into bands like Reuben and Hellish for Heroes and 100 Reasons, and that was a massive sort of Brit rock scene. And when Vex Red exploded, it was front cover of The Enemy, front cover of Kerrang. In Me were doing really well, and that was the sort of music that inspired me to start writing the sort of music that Brigade were doing at the time. But we were slightly behind, so it was almost like we were trying to catch up. We got our first tour with Biffy Clyro, which was a dream come true for me.
And there's also a band called the Wild Hearts, who are a very big influence around the time. They were a huge band back then, and they definitely comes across in the influence.
But I think that what happened was we were caught up in a scene, what was popular by the time that we actually started getting appreciated, and when we eventually did get signed, was the fact that it was all the upcoming emo bands, the massive pop punk explosion that happened, and of course we didn't fit in at all. So we were kind of left as the where do they fit in? We can't sort of put you in one genre. It was very genre defined, wasn't it, at the time?
Yeah.
And we got in some trouble slagging a few bands off.
It's very nice to see you. Thanks so much, all of you, for coming down. This is night one of our 3-night residency. So I've got a few things to say. Like, first of all, I don't know if you noticed, but it's wicked. We're being filmed for a sort of documentary style thing. So I want to say, you guys, please make us look cool, go mental, and have fun. And how's everyone doing on a Friday night? How many of you guys are here for all 3 nights? Sweet. Anyway, here we go.
One of the first things we knew we had to do was get out and tour, and we didn't have a label at the time, and we got out and did a triple headline tour with a band called Suture Pero, who are sort of friends of ours, and still are to this day. And during that tour, we managed to get an A&R representative from Mighty Atom Records, who were a Welsh-based label, who at the time had done Funeral for a Friend's first EP, and they'd done some other great albums as well, released Liberty 37, and it was a real cat and mouse game. Like, the A&R girl, Chessie, lovely girl, came down and she had to play it to her boss, and we had to wait and gig after gig, and eventually we got the Mighty Atom head of the label, Dave Simpson, no relation, down.
Came down. We played it. I remember we played at the Barfly in Camden, and he came down and he met us before the gig, and had the usual the meet and greet and the cheeky pint with him before, and we played a blinder.
I think we'd done gigs before, we were so like, oh my god, there's A&R guys here, and we'd always shoot our load too early and completely mess the gig up, and then when we were meeting people we'd be like, hi, and then you realise this is just all bullshit, and we don't have to try and make any more of an impression other than we're a band and here's our music.
Let's just get up there and do it, and I think that we just started to think differently and just think that we just got to get up there and do what we do.
And I think Dave appreciated that we were a down-to-earth band who weren't some band that he thought, how the hell am I going to work with these guys? Hopefully he just thought we're a bunch of boring nice guys who he can mould into a beautiful pop band.
Yes, well, rock band.
Chances are
album was great because we actually stayed at Dave's house. Dave put us up for weeks at his house, which was an experience because we were just travelling backwards and forwards in the studio every day. And because we were wet behind the ears, we didn't really know what we were doing. We went in, we took all these, all our amps in. We hadn't at that point defined any sort of sound for the band, but we struck lucky because I think the first record sounds amazing. It's in from a raw, punky, young vibe point of view.
I think some of the tunes we were so certain on what we wanted to produce, and some of the tunes they were like, weren't too keen on, were they? But eventually we taught them around.
But I mean, we went in very, very unprepared. We didn't have. I don't think we really had. I mean, one song we hadn't even finished at all.
At least a couple.
We were lucky, really, in the studio with what we.
After a few weeks, I remember staying at Dave Simpson's house, the record label boss, and writing the vocals to Queenie because I hadn't done it yet.
Well, once we recorded the album, we started doing the usual thing the bands do. We started going out and touring a lot because we'd had really good press and good feedback. At the time it seemed very easy for us to then get on tours, didn't it?
And we'd done a lot of touring.
And we'd done so much touring. But then, of course, we started to do all the really fun stuff where you start to make videos and actually release singles and all that. And a great experience was our first ever video was Magneto. And we filmed it at Tower Bridge at a boxing ring, and it was just, the whole thing was just so magical because then the next day we were doing something else, weren't we? We were then going out on tour or something, and it actually felt for the first time ever we're doing this. We're really, really enjoying it. We're a young band, and we're now releasing records and making videos, and we're loving it.
Everything you dreamed of. And then we got our first photo shoot, and then we got to the second photo shoot on the same record. Stuff like that was just really exciting to do. And then we got nominated for a Kerrang Award, which topped it all off, really. It's like an amazing first campaign, and we lost. And I remember going to the Kerrang Awards, and we got absolutely annihilated, to the extent that I remember waking up the next morning and apologising to everyone, including our manager, saying, I really let you guys down last night. I think I was so boring. I passed out, didn't I, straight away? I then saw the photos the next day, and we
were not boring.
We had a hell of a time.
No, it was great.
Somehow managed to crawl home, be sick, and then we had to be up at 7, drive to Glasgow to play a show that night in Glasgow, which was quite a feat.
After all this amazing time that we had on the first record, we then had to face the possibility, or the certainty, that we were going to go in and write another album. So I started doing that, and then kind of like we've been demoing for a while, and our drummer Fim at the time, we just felt, I don't know, that something wasn't right with him, and he was
touring with In Me, do you remember?
Yeah, we were doing the In Me tour, and we just felt that something wasn't quite right with him, and I think that it was a really difficult one with him because when we were out on tour he wanted to be back at home, and when we were back at home he wanted to be out on tour, and it never quite sit right with him, and he would get very down when we were out and about on tour.
We realised that we'd sort of, a friend of ours was managing us, and it got to the point where everyone had told us, mates can't manage you, it doesn't work, and we all said it was fine, then you realise actually they're right, and it's sort of like you've got to have the contacts, and so we decided we needed to look for a pop manager, and he said, look, you should try this guy, a guy called Warren Higgins, who was working at a regional PR firm at the time, and I remember calling him, and he answered the phone, and sort of pictured him as this sort of, 50-year-old Irish guy, and almost like terrifying. Well, send me some stuff. Suddenly we realised that what we'd been missing out on the whole time, our live agent had been great, and our label had done really well, and our press had done fantastically, but we were still struggling to sort of make a breakthrough, and we knew that he was the guy to try and achieve that. And like you say, then it was a case of Warren dug into Fimbo immediately to try and work out if he was going to be a problem, and he did sort of admit to our manager that he wanted to go, and it was really sad. It was literally as we were doing pre-production for the second album.
That's right.
And he just admitted, I'm not 100% about this, and we knew that we needed someone that was.
And that's when we found Mr. Andrew Keaton.
I remember Andy, one of the first things I remember is he was one of the early auditions, probably the second guy we went, and he was late, but he was so casual about it. Yeah, I'm a picture of him, mate. And I was like,
I didn't know I was that late.
He just got in there, and he set up his drums, and suddenly we launched into Magneto, and he just nailed it. It was just so solid, and we just sort of almost probably knew it was you, but we just had to go through everyone else to check.
I think the songs stood out. I've been in other bands that just weren't really cutting the mustard, and I heard Brigade, your first album, our first album, and it just stood out. I thought, this is the stuff I want to be doing.
And I think for Nalto, you felt that definitely asleep.
He's asleep.
And Nalto was definitely wanted to get someone that he could sink in. You know, drum and bass is so important to lock in together, and I think you guys started a budding relationship.
Yes.
After Andy joined the band, it was sort of full throttle ahead. Warren had the difficult task, our manager, of going out and trying to find us another label, because our relationship with Mighty Atom had come to an end. We'd been writing lots of songs, and he seemed quite impressed with the potential of them. But it was tough time in the industry. Everything was starting to slow down. The whole effect of piracy is really starting to kick in, and bands were finding it increasingly more difficult to go and just get simple big deals, and record labels were a lot more reserved. They needed a lot more stuff in advance, namely albums recorded. They didn't want to pay for you to go in the studio. So one of the things we started to try and tap into, which people were starting to do, is investment, and we ended up with this nice budget to go and record with, and suddenly, for the first time ever, started to have our rent paid, and we were sort of like full-time musicians almost.
Yeah.
For the first time, and we're starting to be able to rehearse a lot more. And at that point, Andy had the task of literally learning pretty much an album's worth of material.
Lights and do pre-production for the second album, which is no mean feat. I mean, a lot of the drum parts were written, but I kind of had to adapt them. Fimbo and I are completely different drummers. We hit hard, but there's certain things that his brain works in a different way to mine.
I think it was quite intimidating the first time Finn watched you play.
Yes.
I think you did brilliantly. We played everything about 800 miles an hour.
Yeah, just to get it done. Luckily it was in sort of Norwich or somewhere like that, so it was
Queen Charlotte in Norwich, I believe it was.
Yeah. But we did play really fast. It was good.
Because we then had this money, we got to work with a producer who we'd always wanted to work with, a guy called Chris Sheldon. And he'd done many bands and albums that were a major influence on us.
Ocean Size, Bitby, Aruba.
Incredible. And because we had the money, we were able to go to a place called Mono Valley in Wales, which again, loads of bands have recorded there, and we kind of loved the place, fully residential studio, and we got to have the time of our lives making our second record. We started to obviously think about the album campaign, and we were able to make better videos than we've ever done before.
Suddenly we had like a couple of £1,000 to make a video, and got a named guy in who'd been working on Sugar Babes and things like that. Yeah. The first one, we were absolutely freezing our tits off. It was this abandoned bank. It was incredible, like an old abandoned bank vault, wasn't it?
Yeah, right in the middle of Birmingham.
And it was suddenly like we'd gone up a gear from having a few mates film us in a pub, sort of, to having this big film crew, you know, with actors and extras. And one of the shoots we did, we weren't even there on one of the days, and they did this massive scene with guns and armed forces and all that sort of thing. And it was really exciting, and I think that MTV started playing the videos because they looked so good. But we didn't quite have the same luck with radio on that campaign, and so that was sort of where I felt we were struggling a little bit, but things were still going well.
Off the back of that, we did our own headline tour in August, which was like the proper album headline tour, and that is sadly halfway through when Will lost his voice.
I still feel like awful about that tour, because we've never wanted to cancel dates previous to that tour. We'd only ever cancelled one show, and that was because our van broke down and we couldn't get there. And I just started to I came out of Come Morning We Fight so proud of myself. I'd had some singing lessons, and I thought that my voice was on great form, and I thought I did the best vocals I'd ever done in the studio, and everyone seemed really impressed. I remember Nauto sitting me down one time and went, "Wow, your vocals were really great," and it meant a lot to me. And then we went out in February, the tour before that one, and I started to have a few problems, and then fast forward a few months, I tried to work on it, I tried to improve it, sort of had loads of singing lessons again, but it just got worse and worse, and then my confidence got shattered, and it became like a mental thing where I'd go to open my mouth, and instead of singing a note, I'd almost go like that, kind of like that, didn't I?
Anyway, but we kind of sorted it out, and we knew we needed to have a break, and so Will could recuperate. Because in the November of that year, we were lucky enough to get the chance to go to Japan for the first time.
But I think the problem was I'd sort of pushed these guys to their limit, because they all knew, and I'm sure Andy and Nauta are saying, that we were building this wave, and we were getting to play to the most amount of people we'd ever played to on tour before. And then suddenly my voice goes, and it's out of their control, and they're like, "Come on, you know, please make this work," and our manager as well. And there's nothing they could do. They just had to support me, and it did push them to their limits, I think.
When it came to it, we went over and
With
I
our
think
label boss.
with our label boss and with our manager and everything, and we did the first gig, and Will's voice was pretty ropey.
It was terrible.
With respect.
It was terrible.
It was
I had
pretty ropey.
A&R guys coming up to me afterwards that our manager had sorted out. It was just so embarrassing. And they came up to me, these heads of major labels in Japan, and of course for Nauto it was really exciting. You might be able to get out and get such Japan. And they were coming up to me going, "Rit, your voice, is it okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, a bit of a cold, air conditioning's not great." And it was dreadful. It just didn't sound anything like the record at all, did it?
No. But the irony is, on the last date of that Japanese tour that we did, we had a few labels coming down, and one of them was Roadrunner Records, and we managed to get ourselves a record deal out of it, even though Will's voice was pretty shot. But I think it was just like we had to, because the voice was not great, we had to put even more energy into the performance and just make it really, really special for people. And I think that we did so well on the last gig that it came across like that. We've been back from Japan a couple of weeks, and we had a great phone call from Aura to say, yeah, they've offered you a deal.
got to give credit to these guys because it took. I remember Warren had a chat. Our manager had a chat with Jamie, the singer from Reuben, and I think Warren said to him, "So I hear you lost your voice. How long did it take you to sort it out?" And Jamie was like, "It took me a year." And I think Warren's face was like, a year. And it did actually take over a year to sort out. And that, the sad thing was, we sort of went from being sort of up on a nice plateau here, we sort of went right down and off the radar again. And so we had to just recuperate, think, well, we're not going to give up, we're not going to split up. We always said this is going to be a long haul, we're never going to be an overnight success. So we recouped and we went and wrote a batch of songs that we've been sort of working on for the last couple of years.
Well, we've come through it, and now I feel that we are as strong as we ever have been, and we needed to go through those things to appreciate now what we actually do have, which is still a very loyal fan base. And you know, things like we're doing over these 3 dates, you know, at the Hope and Anchor here, it just goes to show that people still really want to listen to this band and want to listen to our music.
Thanks very much, guys. You're awesome. See you tomorrow. Thanks very much. Have a nice rest of the evening. Cheers.
So it sort of ended up now with a really small team around us who is essentially Team Brigade, sort of the people who really believed in us from day one. We've got our manager, we've got our tour manager who's amazing, girl called Kirsty, we've got our tech, Bob, and a guy called Ames, fantastic, and a guy that does our website, John, and that's about it. But we've been really lucky as well that there's Jägermeister have really helped us. They're a company that have supported us from way back, from almost at the end of our first album, and they've been fundamental in helping us with merch, getting merch printed for us, being able to give away stuff at gigs for promotion, sorting us out with clothes for the stage. I even got a guitar, which was incredible. After we did Download, that was a real magical moment for me. And it's nice that certain people have stayed on board the whole time and their belief in us hasn't wavered. And I'm proud to be working with people like that.
Yeah, no, amazing.
It tastes good too.
And it tastes amazing. Yeah.
I'll give it a rest. Let me break this down. Was up for your medicine, but I swallowed it somehow. I'm making a bet, making more mistakes.
so proud of the new material, and we really feel that every band says it's their best work, but we almost know it's our best work. We don't think it, we know it is, and it's really exciting to give it another shot and to see what might happen with. I think the music's sort of a lot more mature now. We've learned so much, and we've actually produced this album ourselves, which is quite exciting.
Yeah.
And recorded it really quickly in a local studio, and just took the responsibility for the song arrangements, the production, the ideas, and I'm really proud of it. And I think that we're still around, and a lot of bands that have been big have come and gone and flashed in the pan, and we always knew that it would take some time. So we're just proud to still be playing music together, really.
Yeah, we're lucky enough that we were early sort of what's the word? Members of the pledge campaign that's come about on the internet, whereby bands can raise money for their new albums with the help of their fans. So it's kind of the fans own this album from day one of its inception. Yeah.
Like pledgemusic.com, we put our faith in our fan base, saying if you want to hear another record from us, we haven't got a label anymore, we don't have investment, we need some help to make the record, and we put it in their hands, and they did. They all put money in. They bought it. They bought the album in advance without even hearing it.
Somebody bought your guitar.
Someone bought my guitar.
So,
we're going up to play an acoustic show, especially in someone's living room. It's really exciting that people still want to hear what we've got to say, and the music we're making, and so we've done the third album. It's currently being mixed, and we can't wait to get it out.
On the album, as you might have seen from our pledge campaign, we had some gang vocalists coming down and came to the studio. They were amazing. We conducted them as best we could, and they just got on and did it, and they were brilliant. And we've only got a couple of them tonight, but a couple of them have come down especially to come and help on the end of this song. So a round of applause for all the gang vocal pledges. Sarah Ball and Ravina Wilkes, thank you very much.
Our plans for the future now, we're all a lot older, all a lot wiser, we've all got a lot more responsibilities now than we ever have, but essentially at the same time we are still loving doing this, and I would like to think that the record we've just done will hopefully turn a few heads that we didn't necessarily turn before. We're going to put it out initially to the people that are pledged, and then we'll see what happens over the next few months as far as labels goes, as far as maybe try and find another label to put it out on.
Yeah, just keep touring, and you know our expectations, we're grown up now, we're all over 30, and we're not naive anymore to what we can achieve, and I think it's really hard for bands these days. You know, if I was talking to myself 8 years ago, I would tell myself, you've got to live with your parents. If you really want to do this, you know, you've got to realise that you're not going to earn any money. It's really difficult, and so for us, our expectations have never really changed, other than we'd love to be able to do music for a living, full time, and getting the album out to the pledges, see if there's a bit of a buzz about it. If there is, maybe some look, as James said, for a label to put it out on, and then see what happens, you know. And it would just be great if in a year's time we can still be playing music together, and that's all you can ask for, really.
Definitely.
I wake up wishing for a sign I'm in danger. I pass the point with no return, yet I'm gazing back, and I twist and lurch to stroll down roads of remainder. Make a killing while I'm on the attack, my love. Gonna play by the rules or I'll never be comfortable with my decisions and consequence. There is no healing compromise or defender. I take it back till it rolls over and over. No better instead of containing the splendor. Leave and surrender within the vapor. Shut up, retreating, controlling together. The strength from repeating, silent and tranquil. Sick of talking like I don't have an answer. I'm talking sister, but I don't think I've ever won. Too eager to erase ever after. Talking sister, but I'm drowning your tongue. No better instead of retaining the splendor. Leave and surrender. Came the vapor. Shut up, we're drinking, consoling together. The strength of repeating. Silent transform together. Instead of retaining the splendor. Leave and surrender. Came the vapor. Shut up, retreating, consoling forever. The strength of repeating. Silent transform.
We're really hoping by this point that you guys will have heard the record and love it as much as we do. My dad's a massive fan, so I'm taking it that's going to be a good sign.
He
But-
said to me, that the songs make him dance.
you see
So
that?
if that can make your dad dance, then is that a good thing?
Songs to make your dad dance. I've been looking for an album title. And but it's all down to the pledges, and that's what's amazing is we've got to say the most enormous heartfelt thank you to our fans, because they've stuck by us the whole way through, even with a year or two off where we didn't do hardly anything, or the odd gig here and there, and they still seem as hungry as ever. We played our first show last night, playing Lights in its entirety, and the response was amazing, overwhelming. And the people that take time off and book holidays, that use their holiday up to come on tour and come to every night, every show on a tour, the people that spend loads of money to support us, you know, some of the pledges have been really, really generous, and yeah, they're the people that we're able to keep doing. We feel blessed to still have a fan base to play to.
Absolutely.
You know, and the fact that we're still important to people is amazing, and we just hope that we can continue giving better and better work every time around.
Thank you very much.